Welcome back. You're watching Newsmaker Live on DBS with me, Kendall Burton. My guest tonight, Mary Francis, attorney and human rights advocate. We're speaking about the Prime Minister's address to the nation last night, announcing the decision by the U.S. to bar local police officers from participating in any U.S. organized or financed training opportunities or programs, as well as developments within the Royal St. Lucia Police Force and human rights overall. Before we took our last break, we took in a story from tonight's news with the Commissioner reacting to the Prime Minister's address to the nation last night. I want to get your reaction to his comments.
Oh, well, the Commissioner always speaks like he's a quiet, nice person and easygoing and whatnot. But as I said, apparently he must have lost control of the situation during the Operation Restore Confidence. And the whole task force was disbanded, and the commissioner says, well, he has great confidence in the inquest. I don't expect him to say otherwise. I really don't expect him to say otherwise, but it shows that something is not right, and therefore the inquiry has to continue. He says he welcomes the CARICOM independent body to look into what took place. I only hope that the information will be made available. And such a long time has passed now. Who knows, some of the information that is required might not even be available. That is the whole idea about delays, the effect of delays on probably evidence and information. So
okay, let's not delay in taking our next call. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hello, good night.
Hi, good night. How are you?
I'm there, not too bad.
What's on your mind?
My name?
What's on your mind?
Oh, I want to make a contribution.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can understand the patois language?
Yeah, go ahead. How good is your Creole?
Yeah.
I can understand, but I don't know if I can respond in the.
Yeah.
So, I'll speak a little English.
But you can speak patois. I understand
okay,
patois.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
At the police, I could police because you have to protect you. Mais at the police, I can faire bagay contre loi. Because when they not buy you away à moi masse. Yo dit pour les chicken, ça va te liquiter pour chicken. Là, ils vont station là. Yo commence à battre, yo commence à bailler coup de boutou, souffler tout par ton fijaili. Là, tu vas là, ouais, commence à battre, tu vas là mettre couille. Là, ils mettent couille au vieux chébé. Yo fermé. Il y a une qui vient, qui m'a dit qu'il est fermé là. Il prend ya qui mène côté quoi pour un gym là, quoi pour exercice là. Yo va tu vas là mise coup de pied. Tout partout en tête, en vieux, en boudin, en ouin. Il y a point yo tête, yo baisser tête, baisser tête, yo bay coup en dos. Et tu vas aller en jambe cassée, la police te choque li, la police avec majorité pour ça que tu vas aller en jambe cassée. Et tu bay quoi sur même jambe cassée, le fini quoi dit mettre jambe dans la pour casser jambe dans vieux ba ou. Et là tu vas la mettre couille, yo vieux chébé. Laisse joue l'audience là. Yo de ba jonti wala coupable mon yo te di yo pa ouais il pas ouais à comme là so yo après ce police ani bon che yo mauvais à cette police là yo pas bon yo c'est criminel à de yo après il couille aller commencer ba ko vieux fou des musique coup pied bouche ou quoi ou c'est yo couitien et pour c'est police quoi d'accord yo mon faut ça. Le phénomène de majesté, puis de majesté, tu vois monter, ay bordelé pour couiller. Mais au pas de majesté, quand tu coup de pied, bout de bali, tout pas tout enzier, tout zier qui va te enfler. Là, ils sortent là, mener l'hôpital. Là, donc, tout le monde a dit, voilà, assisté malade. Quand tu es mauvais, le taille, ils sortent, laisse, ils ont fermé pour les dire, décesser à aller. Ay m'a dit, si yo savait, ils dit non, parce que quand tu es couillé, ils vont pas te laisser c'est ouais. Quand il était couillé dernier là, il est en session pour combien de jours, personne ne passe à ouais, puisque il était couillé dernier là. Là, il joue l'audience là, il voit Jésus c'est folie, mais quoi dit, oh, soit ça, il forme 4 familles. Et qui dormi là, j'ai dit, il veut dire, c'était l'audience. Il faut mettre 4 familles côté qui il voit là, pour atteindre l'audience. Mais moi-même, vous te complain unit. Pour les amis, pour tout complain. Mais de l'opinion là, pour courir avocat, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire qu'à demande? So, moi, ni tout ça ici, docteur là toujours. Moi, ça m'a monté n'importe côté. Côté, quand il était docteur, quand il était marqué tout partout en vieille, en boudin, en pied, en wing, en toy.
Qui t'en ça arrivé? Depuis qui t'en?
Moi, mas.
Qui t'en?
À moi, mas l'année ça.
L'année ça?
Oui.
But put you party garder pour assistance avocat.
Mais moi, je ne sais pas, on va ça go further. Moi, tout ces papiers docteur, yo, comme de yo papier docteur, moi, ni comme mes papiers docteur, bah, ces papiers docteur là.
Est-ce que sorti castré?
Pardon me?
Est-ce que sorti castré?
Oui, moi, dans le complaint unit.
Ah, ou pas content rien?
Moi, content rien, parce que yo dis, moi, dit, yo va ça faire police là, ici, police, il faut que police là, j'ai qu'à aller pour gouvernement, c'est moi pour acheter avocat, moi pour faire une caisse là.
Ben, c'est ça, yo ka dit tout le monde, yo dit, monde pour aller faire caisse là, yo même.
Yo même.
Ça ou dit, ici, Oswea, c'est bagay, qu'on a point coup tous les jours.
Oui.
Moun ka vini, yo ka dit, mais bagay qu'on a fait tous les jours à la station police ka fait ces bails ça. So c'est pas pièce, c'est pas un 11 killings that nous ka concerné about me. Tous les jours, nous ka ton bagay kon police ka abuse power ka bat moun ka fait. Yo pas ni pour faire ça. Le one wete moun, on ni pour faire charge là. Porter moun la l'audience ou pas ni pour faire ça. Et puis ça ka fait tout frequently in Saint Lucia.
Oui.
So ça moi ça de ou ni pour si vous voulez ou ça probably venir côté office là côté moi ka travail et puis me kay ton ça ou ça dit si une pièce bagay moi ça fait pour aider ou mais tant ka courir vite si on est pour point casse là et puis nous pour point casse code gouvernement ou pas ni un chaitan on est 6 mois et puis ces bagay ça moi j'ai écrit gouvernement pour dire pour extend temps ça by mon plus temps pour yo joindre avocat mettre casse yo together et puis file you need to plus temps passer ça. That's another problem with the inquest. When you stretch it out and after a whole 1 year 2 years since 2011, tell me what right for compensation that those people remain. Nothing at all. If the prescription says 6 months within which to sue the state, all that has to be taken into consideration when people delay and they seem not to realize that persons out there, their rights have been affected by the delays in putting files together and sending to the DPP, then to the coroner.
Mr. Francis?
Yes?
Yo te pour ni loi la mais classique ici.
Okay,
Il fait ni comme l'année ou font cas qui au tebo ay fait flagol là. La fait c'est ici des bon comme ça cas dormant ou pas il finit avec tout monde c'est un fait ani cas. C'est pour ça que tout ces cas yo ka faire c'est que yo fait yo c'est non loi pas adon c'est non loi adon. Mais adon c'est criminal association là.
Ouais, moi d'accord et puis nous on est pour faire assurer ces bagages ça mettez un stop à ces bagages ça.
Okay,
right.
thank you, caller. Let's touch a little bit about the National Center for Legal Aid and Human Rights, because as you said earlier, a lot of people are under the impression that it's a one-woman show, not knowing there's an organization that you coordinate. So tell us a little more about your center.
Well, persons think it is a government department too because they hear me speaking out over the media, and they probably, you see, in St. Lucia, the whole question about legal aid. Legal aid is government should make it their duty to provide legal aid for persons, because if you have to have a fair trial and there is supposed to be equality before the law, you must provide this thing. However, because of the limited resources, government has been unable so far, and that is why I think I established the organization in 1998. At that time, we wanted to actually commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we started the organization with the objectives of providing education, advocacy in terms of promoting and respect for human rights through advocacy, and also the legal aid aspect, because you cannot protect your rights unless you have access to the courts through a lawyer. So that was the whole genesis of the reason behind the organization.
Okay, we have another call. Let's take that call and then we can continue our discussion on the Center for Human Rights and Legal Aid. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, good night.
Night.
Hello, good night.
Good night. Good night.
Yes. Ms. Francis, good night, I must say. Yes, I must say it's a good program. And the thing is that what happens, you find after you make your complaint, that you find that the police and them threaten you that you cannot go to nobody, so you cannot stand in court.
That's not unusual. This is why the organization exists, so that we can actually educate people about their rights, and persons in knowing their rights will be able to stand firm against the police, and at the same time the police will realize that there is a culture where people are demanding that the law be observed by the police and that they respect people's rights. So what you all people must do is to try and become involved in the educational programs of the organization, and
Yes.
perhaps maybe you all will be better able to.
Yeah, but sometimes we come to the association, the organization, the organization. But then what you find that the organization is not strong enough to stand up and fight with everybody, the amount of problems they have there.
Well, that is why I'm making an appeal here for persons to become members, because people believe that probably the organization receives funds from somewhere. There are no funds available. No, we don't receive financial assistance. Just persons who come maybe would pay what they can and so forth. But if St. Lucians don't become involved and don't become members, in other words, charity begins at home, and we have to provide for ourselves. If we come together, unity is strength, then the organization can go from strength to strength and can have a bigger impact in terms of the justice system.
And how do you become a member?
Well, the office is upstairs, the Mount Plaisie building by the square. And you can come in there and have a discussion, and you'll be told exactly how you can become a member.
Thank you very
That
much.
is the problem in St. Lucia. People don't join organizations. People don't seek to promote their own interests, but it's time that we organize ourselves to ensure that we can stand up against behavior which is not acceptable by the state and the state officials.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, caller. Speaking of protecting your own interests, there's a theory or thinking that part of the problem that we have with the police force and human rights and that sort of thing is, we'll get back to that. Let's take another call. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good evening, Mr. Burton. Good evening, Mary.
Good evening.
First of all, let me see, gentleman, lady, that people in this country must understand that our justice system is one of the fundamental tools of our democracy. A lot of our people believe that democracy in this country is manifested only during the time of elections. And elections of and by themselves represent what our democracy is all about. But the justice system is just as important as the organizing of elections. Our men and women in uniform, our police officers, they are part of that justice system. And these people must be seen to be unimpeachable. These people must be seen to be above reproach in terms of the law. In other words, they must be steadfast in everything they do in terms of upholding and representing the law. For too many years, and a lot of people, speak as though this thing, happened just in 2011, exactly. or this thing, came about, just around the time of 2011. This type of stuff has been happening for years. And people have been complaining about this kind of stuff by the police for years. And I agree with Mary. Most of our police officers, I believe, do their work according to the law. They uphold the law. But it is a fact that we have rogue cops in the force. And those people, some years ago, I called a talk show, and I said, if we are serious about putting any dent in the crime situation in this country, we must first deal with the rogue officers in the force. For years, we've been hearing of all kinds of things, of factions here and factions there in the force, factions loyal, to this senior police officer, or factions loyal to that police officer. Nothing. The thing keeps going on and on and on. I mean, we've had infamous police killings like Terry James, Yamaha. Nothing ever came of these things. Talk about inquests. Nothing. Well, and when inquests are finally held, we hear stuff like death by misadventure, or all kinds of silliness. And again, I agree with Mary. When all this time elapses before something is finally done, what do we hope to come out of that? Especially when information that we need, information right after the situation occurs, some 1 year, 18 months, 2 years later, we might not have access to that type of information. And and we seem to be reacting all the time. I heard the Prime Minister say last night, we shouldn't do this for the U.S., but we should do it for ourselves. But we're doing it for the U.S.
That's right.
Because we're doing it in reaction to what the U.S. is now doing. So this silliness about we shouldn't do this for the U.S., but we should do it for us. We're doing it for the U.S. because government after government after government, these people ignore the cries of St. Lucians. We keep complaining about all kinds of things, and it's like this thing keeps falling on deaf ears over and over and over until the thing becomes too huge to be ignored, and then some kind of plaster story is introduced to deal with something which has become a huge problem. Now I agree with Mary. We can still deal with that type of situation, but we have to do it as a people, as a nation, and stop playing silly political games with it. Thank you.
Thanks for your call.
Yeah, I think you have said it all, and that has been a problem which goes way back, and administration after administration would turn a blind eye and would not address the situation. And I said the sadness that I feel, or the disappointment, is that because of the pressure that has been applied by the U.S. now, they are responding, and that should not have been at all. Not at all. We should have responded, and we should have on our own realized that this type of situation, 5 people in one night at least, merited some kind of form of inquiry in addition to the so-called inquest.
Okay, we have another call. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What's your question or contribution?
Why the argument of the U.S. withdrawing their aid from St. Lucia? I'll tell you why. Because if the U.S. withdraw their aid, I don't see a problem with that, and I'll still tell you. Because if the St. Lucian police was getting aid from the U.S., that means the Ukrainians, they should realize that the U.S. don't kill people like, so it wasn't learning anything. So it didn't make no sense that they were giving them any aid, because all this time, if you look at American cops, they don't just about killing people. The duty of the cop is to catch criminals, not to pass judgment. So all of them that pass in judgment, they're just as guilty as the criminals, because these criminals are happy to be put out of their misery so they don't have to face them. So they're actually doing the criminals a favor. That is why we can call them criminals too, because they work in cohesion with the criminals, with their style of operation. So for all these years, if you look at cops on television, criminals look at cops on television and know just how to act. You mean to tell me the police force here don't even look at that station, or even look at the way America handles its criminals and how he makes sure he gets to the root and to the boss of it? That's a call. Don't get it in the street and just do that. It doesn't scare me.
Okay, we're losing you, caller. You're getting distorted.
Okay, so I think in which that our cops should handle this situation. And I'm saying again, the U.S. withdraw.
What's your recommendation for how to handle the situation?
No, I'm not recommendation. I'm saying that I am not surprised and to U.S. withdrawing their aid from St. Lucia police, that shouldn't be a problem because they were not learning anything. The way they operate, their lifestyle, the way they operate with criminals is totally different from how the U.S. operates. If the U.S. have been funding them for so many years and they still go about killing people like that, they wasn't learning nothing. So it's good that the U.S. withdraw their money or whatever because
Okay, caller.
it doesn't make sense.
Okay, I get your point. Thank you very much for calling.
It was a futile thing of helping us.
Yeah. Okay, I was asking you before, there's a thinking that a lot of this is so entrenched, this culture in the police force is so deeply entrenched that it's going to be very difficult to crawl out of. Dating all the way back to colonial days where the police force was established to protect the elites, you know, and we've not emerged. Yes, we've started this community policing as you alluded to, but it's going to take a while, isn't it?
Yeah, the ordinary man feels that he's getting the dirty end of the stick and that there is too much abuse of police powers in St. Lucia. And if we actually don't open our eyes and actually put a stop to some of the abuses, we'll end up in a police state just now. And who wants to be in a police state where all our rights have been trampled upon? It is not a question of putting pressure. It's a question of making the police understand, those who insist on breaking the law, that there are fundamental rights, that we are operating in a culture of human rights, fundamental human rights are universal. And it's a small world where people are, get information, and St. Lucia image can be tarnished on the international scene because of their own actions. And for that reason, they need to know that they must comply with the law. They have to act professionally and don't just abuse their power. There's just too much of that happening in St. Lucia. It has happened in the past, and to me, from where I sit at my office, it is increasing. It is really increasing. We need to have an independent body to investigate, and people need to get results when they make a complaint. Sometimes it takes years, or sometimes you never get an answer, you never get a remedy. So the whole situation really to me needs addressing. It really needs urgent addressing. Policing, community policing is one thing. We had community policing, just opened a police station in Babono. Look at what happened. Look at what happened with this young man who lost his life. Imagine just 2 weeks after, I find the police, quite a number of them were on the beat and so on, or the CID, or what they call the Serious Crimes Unit. They are too trigger happy. Just too trigger happy.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time for tonight, but I want to thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for watching and tuning in and calling in and participating in our show tonight. This is Newsmaker Live. I'm Kendall Burton. Our guest tonight was Mary Francis, attorney and human rights advocate. Join us again next week for another edition of Newsmaker Live. See you then.